This is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and I want to talk with you today about preparing candidates for interviews. Doesn't matter whether it's a phone interview or an in-person interview. This is going to be how to prepare them for an interview. Now, you know how most of your clients start off with that question, tell me about yourself, and the candidate does. And maybe they drone on for a while. Maybe they actually listen to your advice about how to answer that question, and they give a tight answer. Then the client goes back and forth with them for a while. If it's a phone interview, they say, great, we'll get back to the recruiter and let them know if we want to bring you in, or they say, great, we want to bring them in. If it's an in-person interview, they pass the person on to the next person in the process. So that's a pretty typical interview pattern. Eventually, they go from tell me about yourself to, if it's an IT, they go to that technical evaluation of their qualifications. If it's in other fields, there are different Q&A that they go through. They go into depth about what the person's done and how they went about doing it and get a sense of size and scope of the work. And then they get to the point where they say, so do you have any questions for us? And the candidate goes, sure, tell me about the job. And they do that. And it's too late to really do anything with that information because the interviewer's already made up their mind. So here's what I want your candidates to be prepared by you to say. So the phone rings and the client introduces themselves, and your candidate goes, hey, thank you so much for calling. I spoke with Jeff Altman about the job and he gave me a brief description, but I want to get your take on it. Could you tell me about the job as you see it and what I could do to help you? Now, what's going to happen is the candidate is going to get the current thinking about the job at the beginning of the interview, when they can use that information to talk about what they've done that relates to what the client is looking for. Catch that. They get it at the beginning of the interview so they can talk about what they've done that relates to what your client is looking for. They get the current thinking about the job, which is often very different than that job description you've sent to them. So this way, again, they can tailor their answer to what matters to your client, which is all the client really cares about. They don't care if they've done all these extraneous things that candidates drone on about in interviews. They care about whether they can do the job that's been specified. So have your candidate ask that question. And again, the way it starts off is, thank you so much for calling. I spoke with Jeff Altman about the job and he gave me a brief description, but I want to get your take on it. Could you tell me about the job as you see it and what I can do to help you? Every once in a while, your client will say, we'll get to that later. And they will. But, most of the time, they're going to very happily answer that question. And your candidate's going to have a leg up on their competition because their competition isn't going to know any more about the job than what you've been doing up until this point, versus your new candidate who is well prepared to use their knowledge. Now, in an in-person interview, what they do is as soon as they walk in and they lower their butt into the chair, and the interviewer does the same thing, before the interview starts off, before the interviewer starts off with, tell me about yourself, they leap in and say, hey, thank you so much for making time to see me. I spoke with Jeff Altman about the job. He gave me a summary of it, but I want to get your take on it. It's the same question, but, again, languaged a little bit differently because it's an in-person. And then you tell them, don't just talk about what you've done when they ask, tell me about yourself. Talk about what you've done that relates to the job that they're trying to fill. It'll make a huge difference in their success rates. It's going to make a huge difference in your hires. And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? This is Jeff Altman, American Headhunter. Hope you found this helpful. If you did and you're watching on YouTube, share it, leave a comment, click the like button, send it to everyone in your office. Let them see it, let them take the advice in, let them jot down the question, let it become part of your office routine. I also want to encourage you to come over to my website, thebiggamehunter.us. Go exploring there. There's lots of content that will be helpful to you. Now, this is my second in the video series. I hope you find it helpful. There's going to be a lot more there, perhaps, by the time you find this. This is Jeff Altman. Have a great day. Take care.